Disagreeing with an examiner during a thesis defense is not something that happens very often, but when it does, it matters a great deal. If the examiner says something that is indeed inaccurate, incorrect, or unfair, what do? Act submissively and say nothing and let that disadvantage you? Or immediately push back, becoming so defensive and argumentative that it makes the situation even worse? In this video, let's talk about something important and practical: what to say if you need to disagree with an examiner during a thesis defense. Point number one, this doesn't happen often, but when it does, it's so important. I have sat through many thesis defenses over the years, and a student needing to disagree with examiner is not the most common occurrence, but I have definitely seen situations where an examiner misunderstands the student's work, confuses one student's work with another student's, criticizes something unfairly, or says something that is just not quite accurate. And in those moments, yes, sometimes you do need to respond and point out to the examiner that they're wrong. This sometimes is necessary. Point number two, but don't disagree too fast. Check one more time. This is important. When you hear the examiner say something that you think is wrong, when you feel that inner urge that says, this isn't right, this has to be cleared up, before you push back, slow yourself down. Ask for clarification first. Make sure you understood their point correctly. You can say something like this: just to make sure I understand your point correctly, sir, are you saying that? Could you please briefly clarify what you mean by? Do I understand you correctly that in your view the issue is? Asking for this clarification does two very useful things. First, it gives you a little bit of time to think. And second, it makes sure that you are responding to the actual point. Actually, sometimes, once the examiner clarifies, you may realize, oh, this in fact is not so much of a disagreement as I thought. So before you disagree, double check. Point number three, if you do need to disagree, use this simple structure: acknowledge, clarify, and justify. This is a very useful structure. I myself still use it, not in a thesis defense context, but in other meetings, hearings, and work situations. Let's break it down. Step one, acknowledge. Show that you heard the point. You could say something as simple as, I see your point, that's a fair point, that's an important point, I understand that concern, I see why you raised that issue. This matters because it softens the tone immediately. You acknowledge their point. Step two, clarify. Now explain what you actually meant or what the actual situation is. You could say something like, what I meant was, what I was trying to say was. If I may clarify what I wrote in chapter 4, I think my point was. So here we clarify our point. Step 3, justify. Here we explain and motivate our point. You could say something like, the reason I made that methodological choice was in fact because that decision followed from the literature which indicated that I chose this analytical approach deliberately due to the fact that. That's the core formula. Acknowledge, clarify, justify. Very simple, very useful, not just for disagreeing with an examiner in a thesis defense, but also for many other relevant contexts. Now, let me give you some examples of what to say in different disagreeing situations, because not all disagreements are the same. If the examiner misunderstood what you said or what you wrote, this is probably one of the most common situations. For example, maybe the examiner thinks that you are making a causal claim, but your study is descriptive or just correlational. You could say something like this: that's a fair question, and I can see why it may have sounded that way. If I may briefly clarify, I'm not actually making a causal claim here. My study is correlational, so what I can say is that there appears to be a relationship between those variables, not that one necessarily causes the other. I framed it that way exactly because the design of my study does not allow me to draw strong causal conclusions. Another example, if the examiner criticizes a choice you made deliberately and carefully, maybe they criticize you for not using another method, another framework, another variable, or another design, you could use our formula and say something like this: that's a fair point. Another methodological approach would indeed have been possible. I chose this one because it aligned most directly with my research question and with the scope of the study. Moreover, given the time, data, and practical considerations, I did see this approach to be the most suitable and feasible. Although I do recognize that other approaches would have also been possible, and that there would have been some trade-offs among these different approaches. One last example, if the examiner says something that is simply factually incorrect, This is rare, but yes, it can happen. For example, maybe they are thinking of another thesis when they say that you didn't include something in your research, when in fact you did. This is where you need to be especially calm. You could use the formula and say something like this. Yes, that's definitely an important point. If I may briefly clarify, I did actually include that variable in the analysis, and I discussed it also in Chapter 5. Perhaps the reason it didn't stand out as much as it should have is that it wasn't one of the central variables in the analysis and discussion chapters, but it was definitely part of my research. There, we are not bluntly saying that the examiner is wrong, we calmly and clearly state the fact for the record. So in conclusion, if you feel the urge to disagree with an examiner during your thesis defense, do not jump in too fast. First, clarify the point, then, if needed, proceed with your disagreement using the formula acknowledge, clarify, justify. And from what I have seen, repeatedly being able to disagree with an examiner when necessary using a structured approach, that is often what separates a strong student from a panicked one. You do not need to be submissive and you do not need to be combative. You just need to be calm, accurate, and grounded in your response. Have you ever been in a situation where an examiner misunderstood your point or challenged you unfairly, either in a thesis defense or an oral examination? Tell us your experiences and how you handled that situation. Maybe there were important things you did from which we could all learn. As always, I invite you to leave your thoughts and comments down below. Check out my other videos on thesis defense and academic evaluation. I am sure you will find them interesting and useful. Thanks for watching this Ranywayz random video. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.